Did the governor make a good choice?
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
You know, I said that, I was thinking about the UHIP extension for Deloitte, but now I'm thinking about a headline that you'll see in a moment as well. Ken Block is here, the former two-time candidate for governor, heads up Watchdog RI and his own successful IT company, and I'm going to pick his brain a little bit on the computer brain and the company that has been extended to operate it for all that is, here's your checks, and whatever else you need here in the state of Rhode Island. Good Monday evening to you. Just a couple of things. Over the weekend, President lost his mind again, tweeting on John McCain, who, by the way, memo to the president, has passed away, to suggest that we need to review the last-in-class status of John McCain, who, by the way, famously said, I'm paraphrasing over and over again, that he'd rather be fifth on the bottom in the Annapolis class than many others. You'd think the president would release his own academic performance records so he could beat his chest over how smart he was in school. That's just not happening, is it? But the sensibilities of picking on a deceased senator are just something that I know blow by us now, but every once in a while I hope that you take a pause and ask yourself, what have we done here? In the meantime, maybe the FCC can regulate Saturday Night Live. Really. Actually, it was a repeat this weekend. Not even new material that really got the president's goat. The idea that this guy actually thinks out loud about regulating comedy. I mean, the First Amendment rights in this country are the ultimate to protect, and he has no clue about that whatsoever. Again, something you should be thinking about. In the meantime, kind of camouflaging all of that over the weekend was this, the veto of the resolution originating in the House and passed by the Senate by a 59-41 margin to prevent him from using his Emergency Powers Act to enact spending raking for his wall. Interestingly enough, the sheriff from Bristol County, Mass, Sheriff Hodgson, was there at the signing. He's a big fan of the president. He's going to be here tomorrow night to talk to me about all of this. Ought to be an interesting conversation. Stick around for that tomorrow night. In the meantime, new news here in Rhode Island today. An ed commissioner has been chosen by the governor. Of course, she's going to have to get approved, but I have no idea. I really have no idea about her capability and whether or not she's going to be outstanding. I'm guessing that Angelica Infante Green is, well, likely somebody who will have the potential to be successful here. The changing of the guard every 3-4 years just doesn't seem to be a good idea, but it happens. The sustenance of the work is, I think, what we need to think about. But then again, the work sustenance hasn't proven very successful yet. So it's a jump ball. But here's the thing that drives me crazy about this. The governor doesn't use a public process to make her own appointment. Now look, I believe that it is actually the governor who will have the most impact on education from term to term, from administration to administration. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a public process, because engaging an interview process with folks who have points of view about leading a state like ours engages the conversation about public education in the state. So action begets action. If you don't engage the public by engaging the candidates, what you do is you just keep the thing on a low simmer. I wonder if that's the design. I bet you Ken has a thought on that too. But in the meantime, you know what, let me jump ship by that. I bet you, I didn't even tell him I was going to ask about that, but he ran for governor twice. So I'm going to call an audible here, Eric. Let's ask Ken about that. You look too comfortable over there. Sorry, I'm throwing you a fastball.
I'm happy to take it.
Do you agree?
Yeah. At least
You don't have to.
At least we don't change education commissioners quite as often as Warwick changes fire chiefs.
Stay on topic.
Sorry.
Stay on topic.
Hey,
Stay on
call
topic.
audibles, you know?
Will you please? Do you have a thought on this? I mean, do you think the public process ought to be in place for this stuff?
I think that
if you were governor, would you have a public process?
To pick a job like the education chief, I probably would not have necessarily hearings where we interview people in public, that sort of thing.
Massachusetts does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the governor needs the latitude to make the choice that the person sitting in that seat deems is the right person. Look, the big challenge we have in Rhode Island when it comes to education is that the General Assembly meddles in education constantly to the detriment of the students, and we don't have a balance in terms of what the government what state mandates are for education. Most of the mandates are looking at things that deal with the adults involved in education. There are contractual issues, there's that sort of thing. We need a Bill of Rights for education for kids. We need to balance things out, and we need a fundamentally different playing field than we have right now. And we need a reformer as the education chief. We need somebody who will come in.
We had a reformer, we ran her out.
Well, she was run out by the unions and by a weak-kneed governor who wouldn't support someone who was really making a difference. So, you know, that's it comes down to where the governor stands. It comes down to political courage, and until we change the focus to be student-centered as opposed to adult-centered, we don't stand a chance of fixing it.
I'd like a candidate for commissioner to say that in public before they get picked and before they get hired. I think the governor has every right to pick who he or she wants. I just think exposing the process by which she's evaluating and that transparency would energize the public discussion about this.
Yeah, I mean,
public pressure is exacted in crises only around here. RICAS tests against MCAS tests, and okay, now everybody's got a little bother going on, and we're going to make a change. Now, the current Ed Commissioner, Ken Wagner, who threw that chair when he was on this show, he's headed over to Annenberg, which is a great place to just study things at Brown University. I'm not saying it's not constructive work, but you know, he's had it with this process. He's had it.
That's an impossible job to have if you don't have the political support you need to make the changes that you believe in.
How do you generate political support? By the public supporting what you're doing.
It's by the public engaging. And frankly, look, the biggest bully pulpit in the state is the governor's office. And you need a governor who's going to set the conversation and the tone. So in some ways, I view our collective failure in education directly at the feet of a whole bunch of governors who haven't held their ground and stood up to the unions, who continue to water down education and to leave the system unaccountable for its collective failure.
All right. When we come back, the design for this conversation, how do you figure out if we made a good deal extending Deloitte? Stay with us. So this was the end of the week story that had a lot of people talking. Deloitte has been extended, and I think you got to be really careful in evaluating the discount that the state of Rhode Island is getting here. Here's how Eyewitness News reported it at the end of the week.
We are announcing that we've reached a new agreement with Deloitte.
Governor Gina Raimondo is keeping Deloitte, the company behind the botched UHIP social services computer system. Their contract was set to expire at the end of the month, and despite problems that impacted tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders, Raimondo and those at the Department of Human Services say switching vendors would not have been the right move.
This is a safety net system to the most vulnerable people in Rhode Island. Turning it off is a terrible idea.
Friday's announcement is a reversal of what Raimondo said just last year.
I made all these decisions based upon what's right for Rhode Island, not what was right for me or my politics. So eating your own words, it falls into that.
The contract comes with a stipulation that Rhode Island not sue the company over any previous work and guarantees Deloitte write a $50 million check to the state. They'll also offer what the state says are hundreds of millions of dollars in credits and discounts.
It'll bring millions of dollars to the state of Rhode Island, provide us with significantly discounted services and ongoing services, and very importantly, ensure that the system works for our most vulnerable Rhode Islanders.
All right, well, there's some math problems with that I want to talk about, but can we just remind the governor that good politics results from good decisions? The idea that, well, I didn't do the political thing, haven't done the political thing, I'm doing the right thing is pew when it comes to political logic and good government logic, which can intersect. Politicians like to castigate politics over here when they've screwed up over here. Making good decisions is always good politics. And good politics sometimes advises good decision making. She's full of it on that. It's cliche. It's consultantese. You ran for governor twice. Good decisions are good politics.
No doubt. There's a lot.
There's no distinction between good decisions and good politics.
So the question is, what's behind that decision? Why did the state of Rhode Island give up its right to sue a company that has created a computer system that is awful, no matter which way you measure it? The system failed. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's very unlikely that this system will be around 15 or 20 years from now. The system that UHIP replaced had been in place for 30 plus years. This system has bad bones, right? It's like a house where the joists are all rotted. That's what UHIP is. And it was written poorly, it wasn't documented correctly. This is what the Auditor General, Rhode Island's Auditor General said, these problems exist in that code. What that means, right? What that means is that the computer code is poorly written, and worse, it's poorly documented. And there's probably 100 million lines of it. So how do you find your way around it if there's no real good description of what those 100 million lines are and where you have to go to find one line in that 100 million lines? I would love to know what IBM told the governor when she asked them if they would be willing to bid on this. And I'll bet a lot that they told her, either told her one or two things. Either we cannot do the job, or if we were to do the job, it would be prohibitively expensive for you to do it. Deloitte, after all these years, still can't make the system run right. And they wrote the code. So how can another system come out, inherit all that bad code, and have a different result? They can't, right? So that's a fairly certain technical analysis of why the governor was forced to keep Deloitte, okay?
Now, let me remind everybody, you're a software guy.
Correct.
So in case you're, in addition to running for governor twice and doing a whole bunch of stuff on the Watchdog basis, you're a computer guy.
This is my industry.
You write software systems to find
I've
problems in state governments.
I've executed large contracts to do computer systems for state governments. So I have a number of qualifications to talk about this.
I just want to reestablish that for everybody, to make sure they understand that you've got a foundation for this opinion.
But now, so I would love to see Deloitte sued because, in my opinion, they committed malpractice.
She said she didn't want to sue. Again, this is that wink, wink, good politics versus good decisions. She would say, suing is good headline, shows me political and good politics, or leader, good politics, but it's not right for Rhode Island. You're saying on a transactional level, suing Deloitte would have been constructive. Why? Because
we're going to have to replace this piece of junk system that they created, and we're going to spend another $500 million to do it. And it should be on Deloitte's dime, not on our dime and not on the federal government's dime.
The numbers are interesting. Ted Nesi reports and the Journal reports that, you're at some original $617 million public assistance computer program. Now we're going forward and continuing through the extension of this deal. We've got some $400 and plus million of value, for which we're only paying over $200 million. I asked you a good question you gave me a good answer to a question on the radio last week. I'm trying to figure out what the profit margins are of the service right? And whether or not this is actually Deloitte taking a haircut or Deloitte taking less money and still doing okay.
Deloitte's taking less money. They're more than doing okay because they leveraged the Rhode Island project to win other state contracts to do the same thing. And reputationally,
And haven't done very well there either.
well, no, they're struggling all over the place, but they booked big contracts as a result of this work. Reputationally, Deloitte can't leave things the way they are. Really, they contract to every state. They're working in probably every state in different capacities, and you can't take the reputational hit of simply just going like this and walking away. But what's really interesting on the lawsuit side of things, when I sign contracts with big states and to deliver software services, in those contracts we had clauses in there called liquidated damages. And what those are is they say, all right, if you make a mistake and produce data that's wrong, for example, we can fine you $1,000 a report. And I've had contracts where the system could never go down. If you have a minute of downtime, we can charge you $1,000 per minute for every minute that the system isn't working. The state of Rhode Island, when they did the contract with Deloitte back in 2013 under Governor Chafee, had no mechanism whatsoever for the state to hold Deloitte accountable for a failed delivery or any error that they made. There was not one shred of language where the state could assess fines or take any other action contractually to punish Deloitte for messing up. So that's why we haven't seen the state fine Deloitte or push them in any way. And I think that's one of the reasons the governor ultimately just said, well, maybe we won't sue, because on what basis can you sue if the contract doesn't allow it?
Well, that's not her problem. I mean, it's all of our problem. It's not her doing, because it's a Chafee original contract.
Correct.
But her decision not to sue and reportedly getting $50 million back in a check. By the way, this is 80-20, right? So 80% of this is funded by the federal government. You think the federal government's going to let $80 million come back from Deloitte and not want their piece? So I don't think we got a $50 million cash flow from this. And it's kind of funny. If you say you want to charge me $6 for something, and you eventually just charge me $3 for something, it doesn't mean I saved a lot of money. It's just that I didn't pay you a ridiculous amount of money.
Right.
And this is the whole spin of this whole thing.
Deloitte is meeting their costs for sure, and they're probably booking some level of profit off the work that they're doing. Over the years, they've charged a lot of money for some of the stuff they delivered. So they've built up a good amount of profit in the work that they've done. Now, they've handed a lot of it back in terms of, we're not going to charge you, we're going to do this sort of thing over time. But on balance, again, you don't look at, I wouldn't look at if I was in charge of Deloitte, I wouldn't look at the Rhode Island project standalone profit and loss. You look at Rhode Island in connection with the other contracts that you won,
in a way.
And we have a huge reputational problem that we have to address. And frankly, if we have to throw cash at it to help make it go away, that's fine. And oh, by the way, we've taken lawsuit off the table, because we could have been sued for $700 million.
30 seconds on this. From a logistics point of view, I guess makes sense. It still has bugs.
Bad bugs.
The nursing home problem is still ridiculous.
Yep.
Do you think they can smooth this thing out for
No.
any kind of steady
It's
ride?
been years at this point. No system with the level of problems this system has, for the amount of time this system has had them, is fixable. That's why I can say with confidence we're going to be replacing it.
All right. When we come back, a couple other Watchdog things. Stay with us. You've been on the labor board. What's the matter with the labor board here in the state? We got a couple minutes.
So the Rhode Island State Labor Relations Board is something I didn't even really know existed until not so long ago, and most people have probably never heard of it. It is a board
You
that,
engaged them why? Personal experience?
Well, based on some of the fights that East Greenwich had with their fire department, and the fire department grieved some of the town's decisions to the State Labor Relations
Yeah,
Board.
let me quickly remind you that Ken, along with Rob Cody, Citizen Watchdog at Warwick, have been looking at side agreements in the state, specifically in the city of Warwick and the town of East Greenwich. So you rolled into this thing real quick.
Yeah.
What's going on with the board?
And so I wanted to look at this board. How does it operate? Who's on it? That sort of thing. And as I read the biographies of the different members on the board's website, it became abundantly clear that by law, board members are supposed to represent management or labor or be a public advocate. So 3 management, 3 labor, 1 public. And when you look at the backgrounds of the people and the position that they served, there were members of management who've only had, been members of, and leaders of unions. So how are they best representing management's perspective and the taxpayer perspective? They don't. So that's one problem, but a bigger problem is state law says that no member of this board can hold any other public office. And 6 out of the 7 members of this board hold some other public office. So my point on this whole thing is clean it out. Get them all out of there because they serve in violation of law, except for the public advocate who appears to not have a conflict. And let's reappoint members who clearly serve management and have management backgrounds as opposed to labor backgrounds.
So the foundational, the rules are fine, but the execution is poor.
Well, the execution's beyond poor. It's almost corrupt the way that the seats have been populated by not just the most current governor, but by previous governors as well.
Who's going to do that? General Assembly?
I've asked the General Assembly to put in legislation to clean this thing up. By the way, it's a board of 7 people. You know what the quorum is?
4?
By state law, it's 2.
2?
Yep. There's 2 firefighters on that board. Those 2 firefighters can get together, hold a quorum, and vote all day long on firefighter issues. Yeah. It needs some help. There needs to be some changes.
Don't you think? All right. You going to get this line item veto thing, by the way?
Yeah. We're waiting on the Senate to bring the governor's bill out for consideration. The bill hasn't emerged yet. I'm hopeful that the Senate actually holds a vote on the bill this year. We do have 20, I forget the number, 23, 24 reps are on board as supporting the line item veto. Interestingly, the Reform Caucus, who made the line item veto one of their pillars, some of their members have been on board and say they support it. The vast majority won't even get back to me. So much for that.
Reform in Rhode Island is a lengthy, sustaining process. Thank you for your thoughts. Final word and we can back. Figure I'd throw in a final note here. Here's LaSalle winning the girls credit union state championship, and Woonsocket battling against North Kingstown, who won the boys state championship at the Ryan Center. LaSalle comes back to their glory on the girls' side, and you see that number 13 there, Clay Brochu. He had 36 points for North Kingstown, in a game that both games, of course, are called on the radio this weekend. He forgot his jersey. Okay, so his coach, I forgot my jersey. Coach Aaron Thomas always has an extra jersey in his pocket. Gives the kid the jersey, 13. I'm thinking that's the worst number you can give a kid with a jersey. He's number 4. He goes out and scores 36 points as a junior. Guess which uniform he's wearing next year? 13. Congratulations to both teams. It was a great weekend. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO and back here with the Sheriff in Bristol County tomorrow night.